Hello, my friends. It's Jennifer McCollum here, business coach for parent coaches and founder of the Parent Coach Club. And I have a certified parent coach with me today, Julia Ferguson. Hello, Julia.
Hi.
I'm so glad you're here because you're going to walk us through some uncomfortable conversations with our middle age, school age kids. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of that transition into middle school, probably 5th through 8th grade, about those ages.
That's so awesome. So if you are a parent of those middle school age years, kids in those middle school age years, then hold tight because Julia has some amazing insights and perspectives for us today. And I think you're going to leave feeling more calm and confident in your parenting. So Julia, introduce yourself to us. Tell us about how you got into becoming a certified parent coach and the work that you do with parents.
Yeah, so I started working in adolescent mental health almost 20 years ago. I was barely not an adolescent myself, actually, when I started working in a residential treatment center. I was a supervisor there and really got a great education working with therapists and recreational supervisors and all of the messiness of adolescence at that age. I supervised a house of 16 girls and there was lots of drama and lots of high emotions and everything. And so I really got some great training at a young age there. It's also where I met my husband. And at the same time, I got a degree in marriage, family, and human development. And so that sort of started me on this passionate journey for adolescent mental health. And my husband went on to get a counseling degree, and I worked in another residential program for a little bit there as a parent liaison, working more with parents at that stage. And then about 10 years ago, we started Connection Counseling Center, which is a private counseling office that offers services to teens and young adults who are struggling with depression, anxiety, life transitions, ADHD, a number of common mental health issues for adolescents. And then a few years ago, as my youngest was approaching kindergarten age, I contemplated becoming a therapist, but then I started to look into this idea of parent coaching, and I really just fell in love with this idea and love the idea of coaching and specifically parents. And really, my husband and I, as we've been on this journey, I think the continual question in our mind is, how do we raise resilient kids? And as we've been raising 4 kids ourselves, that's kind of the question that we're always asking ourselves. As we've seen his experiences in counseling as well. And so as I looked into parent coaching, I just thought, what a better way to support adolescent mental health than to support and empower their parents. And just really loved the idea of working side by side with my husband and being able to do that. And so for the past year and a half, I've been offering coaching to parents. I'm a certified parent coach through Parent Coach Institute, and I'm also a positive discipline educator as well. And so I've also offered some courses. So that's kind of the journey of how I became a parent coach right now. Wow. And I specifically love to work in the middle school age. I'm a parent myself of preteens and teenagers. I recently realized that by the time my youngest graduates 8th grade, I will have spent a decade of my life parenting in the middle school age. So I'm still in the trenches myself, but I actually really love it because I feel like it's this transitional stage in our parenting where we go from kind of, maybe it feels a little bit simpler in the elementary school age, and suddenly we realize that our kids' emotions are changing, their bodies are changing, that we kind of need to shift our focus a little bit too, to realize that they're halfway through our time with them too, you know, and thinking about that independence and the long road a little bit more too. And so I love to help parents because I think I've been that parent too in approaching those years, that angst, you know, and asking people, oh gosh, middle school, what are we going to do? You know, how are we going to approach these years? And so I think as I've seen what's been helpful for me and all the education that I've been able to gain and just how much support I think parents really need during that transitional stage is why, you know, I arrived at this is the stage that I really want to be coaching right now. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I have so many questions, but I'm going to try not to ask them all, or we could be here for hours because it's so fascinating to me how people get to do what they're doing. And it just sounds like a perfect fit that you're working with your husband. And maybe we could touch on that a little bit before we talk about, the specific conversations and how to have them with your school age, middle school age child. But I want to talk about a parent listening right now, and you working with your husband. He's a therapist, you're a parent coach. When do you know which to reach out to? I mean, you do them both, so that's great. First of all, reach out to you and you'll figure that out. But for a parent listening, when do they reach out to a therapist as opposed to a parent coach?
That's a great question. I think ultimately, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer to whether or not my child should be in counseling. I think sometimes that's sort of an instinct. My husband often tells people that everyone can benefit from some counseling. There's different points, I think, with my own kids too, and thought, oh gosh, what is it that they're struggling with, and had again that angst about it too. And my husband phrased it as, they're learning skills right now. If they're able to learn these skills around their emotions and their social learning right now, this is going to benefit them for the rest of their life. So which kids can benefit from those, learning those skills that they can gain in therapy? I would say all of them to some degree. However, therapy also addresses mental health, specifically mental health diagnoses, and which is separate from the realm of coaching. And anytime I think that you see that it's affecting your child to the point that it's in their everyday life and for a long period of time too, right? That you're seeing that anxiety, that the depression, the friendship struggles, whatever it is, and it's affecting them academically within their friendships. They're no longer interested in the things that they used to be interested in. Those are some red flags that they probably need some counseling. And coaching, I've coached parents who also, their children have been in counseling with my husband, and I've coached parents whose kids have not necessarily needed counseling at that time, and they just wanted some extra support to help their kids through this transition too. So they can work hand in hand really well, in helping parents to understand what kind of transitions and what kind of support their kids need, whether or not they need counseling at that time too.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And I really see the benefit in both as well. And that you're there together supporting families is amazing. So thank you for answering that question for me. But let's talk about what we're here to talk about. And that is all these uncomfortable conversations that we need to have with our kids, because I know a lot of parents are in the same situation, raising these kids. And I love that you're in the thick of it too. And saying like, I completely get you. I'm going through it as well. I love that. I think that's a real benefit for the parents that work with you. So tell me about the conversations. What key reasons do people reach out to you, and the key conversations that they need to have that are so uncomfortable, that we're so nervous about having?
Yeah, definitely. I think, one of the biggest ones, for a lot of parents that approach me with questions would be technology. I think that's a big one at this age. Parents trying to decide, everybody else is getting a cell phone. Do I give my child a cell phone? What kind of limits do we put on this? Social media. I think that that's kind of this big looming giant in a lot of parents' minds at this age. And so I think part of what I go through with that is helping them to clarify what is the purpose of a cell phone or technology, whether it's gaming, whatever device it is that your child's using, what boundaries need to be in place to support their developing brains at this age. How do you engage them in conversations that help them to think through it, to develop those skills for the long term, so that you're creating honest conversations instead of the power struggles that I think often results, around technology. So I think that's a big one. Also puberty, changing bodies is anytime I feel like I bring that one up in coaching conversations, you can just see it kind of in parents, like, oh yeah, we gotta talk about that one too. But it's so important though too, I think, that we can have those open and honest conversations around those changes, because that also affects their emotions too, and understanding what's normal, those highs and lows that they experience. I like to think of it too in any of these different topics, whatever it is that we kind of, these necessary but important conversations, to think of it kind of like a room in a house. And that in some people's family, those rooms, those doors are closed and they're locked, and it's kind of like, we don't go there, you know. We don't talk about that one, or only certain times, or mom and dad maybe hold the key to that room and we can only talk about it when they bring it up. But how do we make sure that that door stays open, that that's a room that they can come and go as they please, that I can bring up this topic anytime with mom and dad, whether that's friends, it's things that I saw on social media, it's changes that are happening to my body, that this is a room that I'm invited into often. And the other part of that is, what does it feel like in that room, right? Is it stuffy and uncomfortable? Is it awkward? You know, does it feel awkward to everybody to be in there? I don't necessarily want to go in that room very often. Or is this a room that's comfortable, that's inviting, that I feel like I can openly express whatever it is that I'm feeling, and I feel heard and I feel loved? And so I kind of go through that process with parents too. How do we create that kind of environment around those conversations, that this is an inviting place that our kids will come back to often with us? There's a lot of ways in which we can do that, but that's kind of the focus, I think.
I love that. So you covered tech, you covered puberty. Are there
Mhm.
other main like uncomfortable conversations we need to be having with our kids?
Yeah, I think, yeah, the other two that I think also often come up would be friendships. And that plays out in social media sometimes. I wish more of that friendship stuff played out in real life, but especially I think with girls, that's a tough one. I think parents, you know, wanting to know how much do I get involved? Bullying, unfortunately, too, becomes more of an issue, I think, at this age. And so knowing what's the line there between what my child can handle and when do I need to be involved? How do we empower them to have boundaries in their friendships too? Even in, you know, relationships between uh, you know, romantic relationships, if you even call that call that at this age too. They're starting to experiment in those ways too. And so we want them to be open with us. How do we express them what a healthy relationship looks like, whether or not that's platonic or romantic or whatever. So those conversations too. And then the other one, I think, you know, to call it an uncomfortable conversation, I think maybe it's more uncomfortable for parents than for the kids, but I would say that's independence, you know. And sometimes parents are a little uncomfortable with the idea that we need to be giving them some more independence right now, right? And what's a realistic amount of independence for your child? That's going to look different, I think, for every child based on their maturity level, but it's necessary. It's kind of pushing ourselves to the edge of our comfort zone for, and sometimes that's for the parent and sometimes that's for the child. Some kids are like, I'd be happy to let mom and dad just run the show for forever, you know. And so how do we push them to become a little bit more uncomfortable too, so that they're learning those skills and those that independence um, that's gonna support them into adulthood as well. So those are kind of the, you know, the main areas that I would say that a lot of my coaching focuses on.
So tech, puberty, friendships, and
Mhm.
independence. My kids
Yes.
are, my youngest are in high school, and then I have two young adults. And I feel like they're still some, for some of them, they're still uncomfortable conversations. And for others, it's like, yeah, they'll talk about anything. So it really, but I understand what you say, like it's more uncomfortable for the parent, I think, because some of those conversations were like, ooh, I gotta talk about this. Or that independence piece. Do I want to take the control away from me and start giving it to them? That was probably one of the hardest things for me to learn over and over again 4 times now. That I do need to give them independence. So and I love the analogy that you have about these open doors. Like I just picture that in in my mind, like all of these rooms, and where is the door closed? It's a really great way to look at it. And how can I
Yeah.
open that door? So when you work with parents, how do you open those doors?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I know, and I think oftentimes around these conversations, I imagine we feel like we have to like gear ourselves up for them, right? Like we're going into battle or something. And I think so often what I want the feeling for parents to have instead is a relaxing around it, is this calm around it. And I think that so much of it is starting with kind of that clarification, because we come into it more confidently, I think, when we know what our own values are around these conversations. When we've done our own work, we've educated ourselves as parents. I find that when I go into these conversations with my kids then about things like puberty or relationships, when I've done that head work myself and I'm clear myself, I feel more relaxed and I feel more confident about that conversation. And I think our kids, they emulate whatever it is that we're bringing to that conversation. If we're bringing calm, confidence, vulnerability even too, then I think they're going to meet us with that same calm, confidence, and that vulnerability too, that they can be open and honest with us. It's okay to say, you know what, talking about puberty is really uncomfortable for me. It's okay to be vulnerable with our kids like that, because then I think it allows them to be equally vulnerable with us too, so I think that that's part of it too, is helping them to gain that clarity for themselves, educating themselves, and then realizing too that these conversations come in moments when we don't always expect them to. Also, I think that that's part of mom and dad holding the key to that room, is when we feel like we have to have these prearranged sit down times to have these conversations. That's like saying, I hold the key and I'm going to decide when we're going to talk about this, right? Instead of randomly in the car on the way home from school, one of my kids will bring up something and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to talk about this now, and being able to say, all right, recently that happened to me, and I just pulled the car over and I told, my younger kids to go inside, and I said, I'm just going to have a minute. I guess we're going to talk about this right now, and so that's what that can look like, right? Is saying this door is open all the time. And so even in the car ride home from school, we can talk about this right now, or at 10 o'clock at night, that's always when it is, I swear, right? When you get down and you're ready to relax for the night, that's when they come in and they want to talk. So small moments, and that those conversations also, they don't have to be really long. If your child decides that they want it to be long, then you can continue to go on. But sometimes they're just short. Sometimes it's just, sharing little things here and there, again, to let them know the door's always open. And this can be a relaxed and comfortable conversation too.
Yeah, that's so great. It's always bedtime at my house that the kids
Yes.
want to talk about things. So when you're working with parents, and do you like offer scripts, or do you just walk them through how to stay calm and be open and ready for these conversations? How does your coaching support them through this?
Yeah, good question. A lot of it really is asking questions, because I think that sometimes as parents, we think that we want a script, but I've found oftentimes that it doesn't always feel natural to us, right? And so I think, again, it goes back to that clarifying for ourselves. So asking ourselves those questions, going through those thought processes. What do I really believe? What do I value? That allows us then for the language to feel more natural in those situations. I can always, some parenting styles, some people want the scripts, and so I'm a huge believer. I'm looking down at my bookshelf here that I have tons of parenting books, right? And so I always offer people, if that's helpful to them, to have books on, to educate themselves on these different subjects. I think that that's absolutely helpful as well. And then just talking through those different scenarios as they come up. This happened this week. Well, how, okay, well, what does that look like then to have a collaborative conversation about this? Just thinking about one parent talking about independence, right? So they have a child, this is actually, at high school, but looking ahead to college, and what does a collaborative conversation look like about college, and how do you engage the thinking brain in those conversations instead of having a battle about what's realistic? And so, one of the first things they usually ask is, what's on your mind? What's keeping you up at night or something? And then we talk through, let's break that down and see how we can apply these different principles in the everyday situations that they're facing right now. That's a big part of the coaching as well.
Yeah, that's amazing, Julia. And I can attest to the benefit of just having someone work through that with you. As a parent, we know what we know. But when we are working with someone else and they're asking us the right questions, I know the benefit. And I've worked with parent coaches. I do know the benefit of having someone pull that information out. And
Yeah.
also the fact that, you know, you're walking them through, and it sounds very individualized. So whatever they need, you're going to be able to provide for them. If they need the parenting books, or just, you know, to have, you know, figure out your values, figure out what, you know, be ready for it, not have so much like angst around these conversations. And you really bring them to a point of calm and confidence in their parent, almost like trusting themselves too, which is
Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely. And you bring up a good point where I think that that's so much what it is just bringing to their remembrance what we kind of already know. I feel like a lot of what we talk about intuitively, we kind of already know, but I think when you have that process of talking to a coach and talking it through, again, yeah, it brings it to a point of confidence. Like, yes, okay, I've got this. I know what to do. I can handle this, you know?
And that's the value of coaching. I just think everyone should have a coach, whether you think you need one or not. Like, just to have a coaching session and just see the power of parent coaching is just, it's an incredible gift for anyone, and amazing work that you're doing. So you work one-to-one with parents, is that right?
Yes. Yep. I work for one-on-one coaching to parents, sometimes couples too. Actually, I love to work with couples. I think when, you know, seeing them both work together, there's some magic there. I also offer courses, and then I'm in the midst of developing a course that would be like a four-part course, middle school prep kind of, for parents, that would hit on those four areas that I just talked about, you know, puberty, tech, independence, and friendships as well. So that's in the midst. That'll hopefully be out sometime later this year.
That's so wonderful. And even though I'm past it, I think I definitely want to be watching taking that course that you offer, to have all of the doors open so that we can continue to have those great conversations with our kids. All right, tell us how we can find you.
Yeah. Connectioncounselingcenter.com is our website. That's probably one of the best ways. I'm also on Instagram at connection.parenting as well. So, and I
That's
offer
so
a free 20-minute consultation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anybody.
that's wonderful. I was going to make sure people know that, like, free 20 minutes with Julia. Take
Yep.
her up on this offer and take the next step to just having that calm and confidence in your parenting. Definitely, definitely do it. Okay, Julia, so much goodness in our chat today. Thank you so much. Now, if parents are walking away and they forget everything you said, which I know they won't, because I'm picturing these rooms. I already see this. I'm going to be seeing it every day now. Like, oh, I'm going to keep my door even open to my office. Let's start there.
Yeah, physical doors. Yep.
But if they forget all of that, is there one thing you want parents to leave with today to remember?
I think just ultimately that you can do this, you know, that you will survive these years, that you have the tools, that you have the values, the skills within you, that you can be clear and confident through these years, and you've got this. Yeah.
So empowering. Okay, everyone, reach out to Julia, right? I'll leave all of the links below. And thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate all the work you're doing for families all around the world.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much.